The worst thing that we are still continuing to do is considering black gangs to be gangs themselves. Like all gangs, black gangs exist. They're like 1% of organized crime in this country. I saw somebody share a picture of Snoop Dogg at the Olympics today sitting next to a white lady with a baby. And it was talking about how he had rebranded himself from gangster rapper to America's grandfather. What if I told you that grandfathers were always a part of black gangs? Like, black gangs were started by the CIA in the United States. Black people didn't just decide to go to war. They organized because they were being attacked. What else is war other than organizing? What's an army other than organizing? The United States has the biggest military budget of any other country. What is that? What is that other than organizing? We are responsible for destabilizing and a lot of different countries, a lot of different currencies. We are notorious for pulling coups in other countries. We are single-handedly funding Israel. You all are still hating on poor people, acting like they're the crime in this country, like they're the reason that your taxes are high. Meanwhile, all of your money is being spent on war. Almost all your taxes go to military installations on foreign bases, 800 of them, but no other country has a military base in America because it's a fear tactic. It's a fear tactic. We are a fascist police state. Fascist police state. Anyways, organized crime is what gangs are supposedly referring to. Like, it's supposed to mean organized crime. The Hells Angels get to just say, we're not a gang. And they're just like, okay. Meanwhile, they criminalized the Black Panthers for feeding their neighborhood. Or for people asking to not be tear gassed. We've watched as... Do you think that, like, the riot police have just recently and, like, decided to get bad? Anybody who protested for all of the rights that you have dealt with insane violence from these police. The KKK was a gang. Not to mention, every day when you call the police, if they get arrested, if they go to prison, do you know what they go into? A gang. Hi. I was born gang affiliated. My father grew up in the blackest city in the nation. And then ended up arrested when I was 1 year old. And for a poverty crime. He was arrested for writing bad checks after he was originally the child of a rock star who was taken away by Child Protective Services and ran away from his group home because kids were pooping in his shoes. Probably because he was talking about how he smoked his first joint with Willie Nelson. Probably because he was talking about being raised by Waylon Jennings for 2 summers. Probably because he was talking about his sister named Phyllis. Because they knew Phyllis Diller. He was homeless on the streets of Detroit as his father played the #1 song all 1973. Actually, multiple #1 songs. 1973. Internationally, #1 songs. In lots of countries. And that's not even all he did. He continued to be very famous as my father continued to be homeless. Since he was 10 years old. He was arrested for the first time at 10 years old. My father's covered in... Let me just show you my father. This is my father. It's all fun and games when I'm calling myself Jesus, but when my mother met my father, they called him God. They continued to call him God as he was a shot caller in a race gang for 17 years. Because when he was arrested for writing bad checks, they put him in a cell with somebody who tried to rape him who was a child molester, so he killed him. He got 17 years. You guys think that gangs are like Snoop Dogg. Gangs are the prison system. My father didn't just choose to be in a gang. It was survival. You don't have a choice. Outside, we have racism. And in prison, that is a race war box that you can't leave for decades. For your whole child's life. I'm the child of a shot caller in the Aryan Brotherhood. And that's not even the scary part. That's not... If you think my father and Snoop Dogg are gangsters, then do I have a story to tell you about Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street? How about the CIA, the NSA? Let's talk about 9/11. Let's talk about how Donald Rumsfeld held a press conference the day before 9/11. That $2.4 trillion was missing. Boop. And then all of a sudden the next day, what is it? It's 9/11, 2001? The day after $2.4 trillion was announced missing in a country whose Pentagon has never passed an audit. And now they're declassifying UFOs and revealing that they've been chasing down UFOs and trying to reverse engineer them in black budget, trillion-dollar escapades. When they're not teaming up with Boeing. NASA just recently teamed up with Boeing, and the astronauts that are in space and stuck there right now, it's July 31st in 2024, and it's been a month that these two astronauts have been in a Boeing and NASA team up to go to space, and they got them stuck. Boeing, you know, the company where they got... I didn't need to know from a whistleblower that Boeing planes were messed up. I knew that from AA. Somebody told me that at an AA meeting once that 90% of people who build planes have DTs and alcoholism. They have shaky hands, and they're building your planes with shaky hands. They're alcoholics. And then they pay off, which is what the whistleblower was. He was somebody who inspected the planes, and he got in trouble for finding too many errors. Anyways, I meet people who knew my father in prison every day. And he's never lived in the state I am in. His father was very famous. My grandmother, my mom's side of the family, is very corporate. She's the highest paid... My grandmother is the highest paid woman in a corporation that has military contracts that build oil pipelines. And she's been the head of their human resources for 4 decades. They also deal with automation technology and engineering. And that's who I came forward about when I talked about my family having Munchausen by proxy. I am taking on some of the largest forces in this country. And you guys still think Snoop Dogg is the gangster. He's not. I know something about organized criminals. I'm up against them, homeless, outside, for fucking half a decade. For a full decade. For 30 years that I've been alive. The first attempt on my life, I was 18 months old and burnt with a pot of soup from the neck down. Do you think it wasn't because I'm the child of a white supremacist? Why do you think they weren't investigated? Do you think it's because they're not rich and corporate? They took my kid as revenge for me getting therapy for them having Munchausen, and you guys watched it. Shut up about gangs.